What is up, guys? My name is Andrew and I'm back from the video. Today we are back with more Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. This is episode 2. This is the episode we're going to take to thoroughly go through all the Skylanders and their abilities and how you should go about playing each one of them, and probably, what the heck? And probably which upgrade path you should take for each one. And so we're going to go in alphabetical order by element and by Skylander. So we're going to start off with the Air Skylanders with Lightning Rod. So, Lightning Rod, HP 280, speed 43, armor 18, critical hit 30, and elemental power 39. So, Lightning Rod is great with his ranged attacks. He has his Lightning Javelin, which has a fair amount of distance, and his Grand Lightning, which is great at taking out enemies from a distance. However, it takes a minute to charge up, and it can only go for a certain amount of distance before the attack ends. Now, he does get upgrades later on to improve both of these abilities. However, I think that it's better to improve his Grand Lightning because it becomes that much stronger and can kill lots of enemies with one shot. Now, one shot doesn't just mean instantly, boom, you're dead in this game. It could also just mean using the attack for the entire duration and boom, you're dead. So, when I say one shot, don't necessarily mean it's going to kill an enemy instantly. So, Lightning Rod actually has a decent amount of elemental power, more than most characters in the game. And elemental power improves the strength of your Skylander as well as the experience and gold it receives in elemental areas of its element. And each Skylander's elemental power increases by 7 every time you unlock a new Skylander of that element in your collection. So as you can see, we have collected Lightning Rod, and we have his 2 attacks here, Lightning Bolt and Grand Lightning Summons. And his Soul Gem is okay. You can get it comes in decently early in the game at Chapter 9. As for upgrade path, I would definitely go with the Grand Lightning Master upgrade path because his Grand Lightning is just amazing, and it's also really cool. And it's what made me like Lightning Rod in the first place. And his Soul Gem, you can, if you want to get it earlier in the game, you can. But normally, I would wait to get a Soul Gem until you've gotten all the other upgrades for most of them. And sometimes I wouldn't even bother with the Soul Gem for other characters. But that said, enough about Lightning Rod. We're going to move on to the next Skylander, and that is Sonic Boom. Now, Sonic Boom is a unique case in that she's a griffin who's cursed to have her children go back into the eggs once they've hatched. So as you can see right there, 2 Air Skylanders collected elemental power increase. So each of my Air Skylanders now has plus 14 elemental power. And you can see she has her Egg Toss and her Roar. So, while you can upgrade her Roar, and it is a decent ability, you can't. Her Egg Toss is just so much stronger because you can when they're making 4 children at once, and you can attack them, and they all will attack enemies as well. And her Soul Gem you actually get very early in the game, and it's very strong. It's when if you roar near the babies, they will emit like a roar aura around them that damages enemies, and it's really strong, and I would highly recommend getting it. I haven't gone over the stats yet. Sonic Boom stats: HP 280, speed 50, armor 18, critical hit 37, and elemental power 25. Sonic Boom is actually very fast, and when you unlock her flight ability, which is usually about 700 gold unless you've gotten a couple winged sapphires, it's really good and it makes Sonic Boom really fast. Alright, on to the next Skylander. We have the Spiked Air Turtle Warnado. Alright, Warnado actually is the first Air Skylander to have a little bit more armor. Not so much armor, but HP. His HP, as you can see, is 310, his speed is 35, his armor is actually 30, his critical hit is 10, and elemental power is 46. Now, Warnado is a case of characters that are going to be seeing a lot in this game, where they may seem weak to start off with, but once you upgrade them with the right path and stick with them, they can get very strong very fast. And Warnado is one of the best examples, because right at the start, it doesn't seem like he's that strong. However, once you upgrade his tornado, his little tornado he tosses out that will suck up enemies and damage them, once you've upgraded that enough, it becomes increasingly powerful, and he's really good at crowd control at that point, especially once you upgrade his dash a little bit. His Soul Gem you actually get very early in the game, and it only gives a small armor boost, which honestly, with a lot of the Skylanders, they don't need all the armor they can get. But because his armor is already 30, it's not that necessary. So you can afford to wait to get it until you've gotten all those other upgrades first. On the last Air Skylander, we have Whirlwind. Whirlwind is a unicorn dragon, and she shoots rainbows out of her horn. Whirlwind is really strong in the fact that she has almost no downsides. She's really good at close range when she uses her Tempest Clouds, and once you upgrade them enough, you shoot the rainbows into them, more rainbows will split away from them, and they will deal way more damage. She's just really strong overall, and there's only a few characters that have like a lobbing type of attack, which is useful, and I will point out later why, but as of right now, it's not that relevant. Her Soul Gem, if you're playing just by yourself, don't even bother, because it only matters if you're playing with a friend, because it will heal your allies when you shoot a rainbow at them. But, like I said, if you're playing single player, don't bother. If you're playing with 2 people, then, yeah, I would probably get it. And I would probably upgrade her rainbows, because her rainbow is just so strong. And there's not much else you can, like, her clouds are strong, too, but the rainbows are just so powerful in the fact that... Oh, I didn't even know our stats yet. This is going to be probably a really correct thing, huh? Whirlwind's HP 270, Speed 50, Armor 18, Critical Hit 50, and Emergency Elemental Power 39. So Whirlwind has a decent amount of elemental power as well, and that can become relevant, especially with the more Skylanders you collect in the elemental areas. But for now, she's alright, but she can be super powerful later on in the game. Moving on to the Earth Skylanders. First up, we have Bash. This is going to be a recurring theme within the game. This is going to be... Each element has one Skylander that is reminiscent of a dragon in some way, and Bash is the Skylander for the Earth. Is the dragon for the Earth Skylanders. His HP is 310, his speed is 35, his armor is 12, his critical hit is 20, and elemental power is 32. Now, yes, despite what you may think, Bash has very low armor, but he makes up for that in the power of his attacks. Like for his tail swipe there, and is really strong at taking out multiple enemies at once. And his roll is not only just good at combat, but it's also a really good way to get around, because it's much faster than his normal walk speed. His armor, his Soul Gem is basically more armor, which honestly you get kind of late in the game. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Maybe it's early in the game. Well, at some point towards the middle of the game, I think, where you get it, and it can be useful, especially if you want him to be more of a tanky Skylander, which you definitely can do. But obviously you can see he obviously excels at melee, and eventually he gets a ability that what's it called? I forget what his other ability is, but he kind of like summons something. I might have to resort to my You know what, let's go talk to Persephone. She would probably know. That's right, we haven't gotten to Persephone yet. But his third ability is decently good. It's obviously not the armor, if I can't remember what it is. Oh, now my controller's doing the thing again. Okay. Plug that back in. Are we still recording? I hope. Yes, okay. And the controller's doing the thing again. Alright, so next up for the Earth Skylanders, we have Dino Rang. That was weird, okay. Why don't we just ownership that? Did we get the one for, Bash? I wasn't paying attention, actually. We did, okay. So Dino Rang, do not sleep on Dino Rang. He's actually very strong. His HP is 300, speed 43, armor 30, critical hit 30, and elemental power 25. Dino Rang is great at ranged attacks and is also very good at melee and can surround himself with this boomerang shield that not only will deter enemies from attacking him, but also deal lots of damage in the process. Dino Rang is actually probably the fastest of the Earth Skylanders, and with one of the strongest armor stats to boot. And his Stonefist Traps, his third ability, can be very good at zoning away enemies and keeping them at bay while you attack them from afar. And his Soul Gem you get decently early in the game, and it's not that useful, so I would recommend waiting to get it. It just grabs food and other items and stuff. So, like I said, you can wait for it. If you really want to get it, you can get it pretty early. It's pretty early in the game. It's Chapter 6. But, again, do not sleep on Dino Ren. He's very strong. I'll probably be using him a lot. On to the next Earth Skylander, we have Prism Break. Probably my favorite Skylander. This golem is amazing. I love his abilities. So, he has his beam, and he has his crystal, which he summons that drops on the ground, deals damage to enemies, and refracts your beam. And you can upgrade this a lot. So, for Prism Break stats, HP 290, Speed 35, Armor 18, Critical Hit 30, and Elemental Power 25. 25 is a standard for Elemental Power within Skylands, but he does have a decent amount of speed, and his Critical Hit is not that bad either. And he's just an overall heavy hitter. I would recommend upgrading his beam, because while you can upgrade the crystals, his beam is the one that does the main amount of damage. And you get some really cool colors later. And he's definitely more of a ranged fighter. When you unlock his Crystal Smash, I can't remember what it's called. It's good at keeping enemies at bay. But Prism Break is definitely more of a ranged fighter, despite his looks. So I would recommend upgrading his beam pack because of that. And his Soul Gem, you get quite early in the game. It's okay. It increases your combat potential because it traps enemies you kill in the crystals, but it's not too powerful. I mean, it can help refract the beams more, but beyond that, it's not super necessary for the game. And do Prism Breaks to the kit. So moving on to the last Earth Skylander, we have Terrapin. This guy is an exclusive to the Pirate Seas Adventure Pack, and is probably one of the most fun Skylanders to play. His stats, he has 310 HP, 35 speed, 18 armor, critical hit 30, and elemental power 25. Now, as you can see, Terrapin is a melee character, which means he has his primary combo, where you press the A button, the combat button twice, and then press and hold it a third time to get a combo. Yeah, you will be able to unlock combos later where you can do it with the other two buttons as well, but you can't do that right now. And his other ability is his dive, where he kind of swims underground, and can then you can press the attack button, the primary attack button, and he will come up and do a body slam. And this gets very strong, and I would definitely recommend upgrading this later on. And I would definitely recommend upgrading his burrow abilities rather than his Shark Frenzy, which is his third ability, because the burrow is so much stronger. His Soul Gem is decent, but his Adventure Pack isn't until level 24, which is almost one of the last levels of the game. And while you technically can play it at any point because of the Adventure Pack, I would say it's not that useful, because it's kind of like Dino Ren Soul Gem, where you just kind of grab stuff with your fin while you're underground. So like if there was a food right here, I could grab it, but it's not that necessary, so I wouldn't bother with it until you've gotten his other upgrades first. So Terrapin is also, very obviously a melee fighter, so you want to be up close and personal, and can honestly stand toe-to-toe with most bosses in the game once you increase his armor enough. And you can actually increase the Skylander's armor through certain heroic challenges, which, when completed, will give a Skylander a special stat boost. And they can be a whole bunch of different things. And there's one specific elemental or heroic challenge for every Skylander, but any Skylander can do any heroic challenge at any point. So you can upgrade his armor quite a bit and make him one of the strongest characters in the game. Moving on next to the Fire Skylanders. First up, we have Eruptor, probably the most iconic of the four, because he's used a lot in the promotional trailers and art for the game. So Eruptor, his HP is 290, his speed is 35, his armor is 18, critical hit 30, and elemental power 25. So his stats are almost identical to Terrapin, but the thing is that he wants to be a little bit farther away. He's about a medium range attacker. He's got his Fire Lobs and he's got his Erupt. Both are really strong, and then he can spit out little magma balls that roll around. But I would definitely recommend upgrading his Erupt a little bit more, because it is super powerful. And Revenge of Prometheus is one of the strongest abilities in the game. He basically annihilates everything around you. He can stand toe-to-toe with bosses, just do not let him get too close, unless you complete some more challenges to upgrade his armor. or if you want to wear a hat to give him a lot of armor, that works too. Just be careful because he doesn't have as much HP as Terrapin, so it's going to be a little bit easier for bosses to defeat him. But overall, very strong Skylander, very strong pick. Moving on to my favorite of the Fire Skylanders, we have Flame Slinger. Now, Flame Slinger is a flaming archer that is also blindfolded, which I find amazing. So he has his main fire arrow, and then he has his fire dash, which can be very strong, and once you upgrade it far enough, if you draw a circle with it, it will create a pillar of fire that will shoot up and damage enemies, and very strong. I need to go over his stats, don't I? Alright, Flame Slinger stats. HP, 250. Speed, 50. Armor, 24. Critical hit, 40. And elemental power, 25. So yes, Flame Slinger definitely has a lower amount of health pool, but his speed definitely makes up for it, and the fact that he's a glass cannon, he has a lot of damage he can do. As long as you stay away from your enemies, you should be fine. And his third ability, the volley shot, is kind of like an extension of his first ability, and the fact that it launches arrows straight into the air, and then they come back down like a mortar. And his soul gem, you get quite late in the game, so it doesn't matter that much. It's still good though. It's an increase to his volley shot, which you don't really upgrade. So you either would upgrade his fire arrows or his dash. I personally would upgrade his dash just because I love the idea of drawing a circle and then making a huge pillar of fire. But if you want to upgrade the fire arrows, it's also a decent way to do it. It probably is more combat effective. I just like having the dash personally. So I'll probably be doing the dash, but if you wanted to do it the more efficient and powerful method, I would probably say upgrade the fire arrows. So moving on, next we have the flaming suit of armor igniter. So Igniter, he's an odd one. He's got less HP than Flame Slinger, but he's super strong. He is, his HP is 240, speed's 43, armor 12, hit 40, elemental power 25. Igniter is probably one of the strongest characters in the game, like hands down. So he can launch his little soul out like that to damage enemies in a mortar, and eventually, if you upgrade it enough, he'll be able to move it around, and it kind of like its own being almost to control it. And his sword is very strong, and he will have like a sword slam at some point for his third ability. Igniter, you definitely want to be up close, but you want to do like a little dance around the enemies so they don't actually hurt you too much. And his secondary attack is really good at keeping him at farther enough range that they can't hurt you. And as for his soul gem, it's just an increase to armor. It's not too strong. You get it decently early in the game, but you don't need to worry about it right away. I would recommend getting his other upgrades first. And definitely upgrade his fire soul, as I like to call it. What is it actually called? His flame form mortar, because it's very strong and is very powerful. Well, it's just something, but it's very strong and very more capable of dealing with enemies at farther distance, which is necessary because Igniter doesn't have a lot of armor, despite the fact that he's a knight. Alright, moving on. Now we have Sunburn, the Skylander exclusive to the Dragon's Peak pack. So Sunburn is another example similar to Warnado, with the fact that his strength, it becomes more apparent the more you stick with him. Right now he's not actually that strong. But he becomes much stronger later on once you've upgraded his abilities. Sunburn's stats: HP 280, speed 43, armor 24, critical hit 30, and elemental power 25. So, think about Sunburn's attacks right now, they're not that strong. But once you start upgrading them, especially once you upgrade his teleport ability, they become very strong and can deal burst damage very fast. He actually is one of the only dragon Skylanders. He's more so a phoenix than a dragon, but he's one of the only characters with wings that can't fly. Instead, he has like a dash where he dashes on the ground as like a fire, I guess style, like a stencil style. I think he loves to just like kind of like flat on the ground as he zooms forward, and it's called Phoenix Dash. But yeah, definitely be careful with Sunburn though. Is that he's not very heavily armored, even though he's got more armor than Igniter. Definitely play more of an evasive battle with him, where you want to always avoid damage and just hit them with your teleport and your Phoenix Dash and your flamethrower. His Soul Gem, again, is the same problem with Terrapin. It's just an upgrade to one of his abilities that isn't entirely necessary, but if you want it, you can get it. And you can technically get it at any point, but Sunburn's Adventure Pack Dragon Speak is actually the last one, with Chapter 26. So if you're playing it all in order like I am, you probably won't get it until the very end. So it's not worth worrying about at all. So next up, we're moving on to the Life Skylanders. We start off with Camo. He is the dragon of the Life Skylanders. Camo is a special case. So he's got his sun bullets, right? And then he's got this. His vines, which explode and are very hard to control, very hard to aim. His third ability, which I can't show here, is his melon fountain, where he jumps into the ground and spawns a bunch of melons that will fly out and hit enemies in all directions. That ability is probably his strongest one, and I would definitely recommend upgrading that one. Let's go over his stats. His stats: HP 350, speed, HP 300, excuse me, speed 50, armor 24, elemental power 32. I said that out of order, and critical hit 30. So Camo is very strong in dealing with large hordes of enemies, especially with his third ability. And I can't show it here, but Camo's third ability basically can take care of huge swarms of enemies, and he's very good at crowd control. Not too much to say beyond that. Camo is Soul Gem. You get it about mid-game. It's okay. It's not too useful. I would recommend waiting until you get his other upgrades first before you focus on his Soul Gem. Next up, we have probably one of the strongest characters in the game, Stealth Elf. Now, Stealth Elf is a glass cannon in the fact that she has very low HP and very low armor, but she boasts the highest critical hit stat of any character in the game at 50. So we'll go over her stats. Her HP is 270, her speed is 50, her armor is 12, her critical hit is 50, and elemental power is 53. So Stealth Elf is actually very, very, very strong. You don't want her to take too much damage, but she can deal a lot of damage. And her secondary ability ensures that she won't get hit because it'll lure enemies to the fake version of herself where she goes and attacks them from behind. And you can upgrade this later. I would definitely recommend upgrading her blades though, because it's just where all of her power is, and she is so freaking strong. She also gets one of the best dash abilities in the game, her somersault, and you can just use it infinite amount of times, and it's very fast, even faster than her normal run speed, which is crazy because she's got one of the fastest run speeds in the game. And it's overall a very strong character. So if you see her on eBay, or you've got a friend who's selling stuff and you see this one and you want to pick it up and you want to play Skylanders and pick up certain Skylanders, Stealth Elf is definitely one to look out for. She's very, very, very strong. And actually you can deal with large enemies quite quickly and very effectively as well because of her evasion. Coming up next for the Life Skylanders, we have Stomp Smash. Personally, my favorite one. So he's a tree with two stumps for hands. And he boasts probably the highest HP out of any character in the game. HP 340, excuse me, speed 43, armor 30, critical hit 20, and elemental power 39. So he also boasts one of the most high elemental powers in the game. And Stomp Smash is a melee character quite similar to Terrapin in the fact that he's really good at standing toe-to-toe with most enemy bosses. And he also has decent ranged attacks, but I would definitely recommend upgrading his Mega Nut, which is his third ability, and because it can do so many things. You can bullet towards enemies, you can smash it, and then it ignite and blows up in a huge explosion. So Stomp Smash is all around a very strong character, and his Soul Gem you get about mid game too. I don't know, it's more so later in the game, and honestly, so I'm thinking of a different character. Stomp Smash's Soul Gem actually is in the next level, but there's so little water in Skylands because his ability lets him heal while he's in water, and float in water. But it doesn't actually matter because there's almost no water in Skylands to use it aside from the water section of the game, and maybe a couple odd levels here and there. So, moving on from Stomp Smash, we have the last Life Skylander, Zook. Zook is a ranged character by nature because he's good at mortar. So he has his primary attack, and then he has his foliage shield. I don't remember what it's actually called. but it's really good at keeping the enemies at bay, and also you can shoot through it. I would definitely recommend upgrading his third ability, his Pineapple Mortar, or whatever it's called, and which I don't have quite just yet. It's very powerful, and when it's combined with your shields, basically it lets him pick off any enemy at any distance he wants. And as for his stats, he's got 260 HP, speed 43, armor 30, critical hit 20, and elemental power 46. So he actually is very strong in terms of his elemental power. His soul gem you get about mid-game, towards the latter half of the game. It's okay. It's definitely one of the stronger soul gems because it lets him fire. Lets his pineapple mortar split into multiple mortars. And that can be very strong in combat. So I would still say wait to get his soul gem until you've gotten his other upgrades first. But if you want to get it earlier in the game, that's also a viable option as well. Moving on from the last Skylanders, we have the Magic Skylanders. First up, we have Double Trouble. It's kind of like a Witch Doctor themed Skylander. And so he has his magic beam, and then he summons these little pet dudes, little tikis, that will go around and will jump on enemies and attack and hit them and explode. And once you've upgraded them enough, you can have 3 at one time. And then you can eventually shoot them with your beam and make them gigantic, and they do a lot more damage. So yeah, definitely recommend upgrading his tikis, the little dudes. And he's kind of a medium range fighter. He can do a lot of things. So he is decently strong. And it appears that he doesn't seem to have an ending point with his beam. You can just keep using it forever, as you can clearly see. So let me go over his stats. He's HP 250, speed 35, armor 18, critical hit 50, and elemental power 25. So Double Trouble actually can do a lot of damage very quickly. And that might be relevant in a lot of fights where magic is the strongest element, especially because he can deal with a lot of crowds very easily with his tikis. His third ability, his Magic Bomb, is okay. He just kind of explodes. He just kind of hovers up a little bit and explodes. A little bomb underneath him. His Soul Gem is literally the last story level in the game. Don't even bother with it. There's no point. It lets him float on water. That's literally it. Don't bother with it unless you really want to just complete everything, and you have no other character that needs gold for it. So yeah, Soul Gems. So yeah, Double Trouble Soul Gem. Don't even bother with it unless you really want to. I don't know why you would. Maybe you just want to get all the Soul Gems and upgrade everything completely. Which, I mean, I guess is viable, but other than that, don't bother. Up next, we got the OG Skylander himself. We got Spyro, which we did see in the first chapter a little bit. So he's got his primary fireball attack, and then his dash. He unlocks flight later, and as for his stats, HP is 280, speed 50, armor 18, critical hit 35, and elemental power 25. So Spyro's kind of an all-around character. And he is one of the only non-fire Skylanders to have a fire-based attack, and that won't become relevant until later in the game. Actually, probably one of the levels that you get his Soul Gem, which is okay. Actually, it's the level after you get the Soul Gem that's relevant, but it's okay. His Soul Gem, you get it decently late in the game, and it's honestly not too strong. So I recommend holding off on it if you can. I would definitely recommend upgrading his dash because he moves very fast. He can deal a lot of damage very quickly. His fireball is okay, and honestly, either path is actually really good. So, I personally like upgrading his dash, but if you upgrade his fireball, it's also a very viable option. Moving on to the next Skylander for Magic, we have Boodude. It's funny, you think he'd be kind of the Witch Doctor dude, but that aesthetic honestly goes to Double Trouble. So Boodude is a melee character. He's got his axe. And then he's got his latch, which you can use to latch on the enemies, pull them closer to him so you can do his melee attacks. And then his third ability is a tripwire, which enemies hit and they will take damage. His Soul Gem you get very late in the game, and while it's good, it's not too prevalent, so I would wait until you get his other upgrades first. Definitely would recommend upgrading his at melee because that's where most of his power comes from. And I don't know where stats here. Like I said, it's a recurring thing. HP 290, speed 35, armor 12, critical hit 30, and elemental power 25. It's actually a thing with a lot of Skylanders where they want to be up close, but they don't actually have a armor to do that. So, like I said, heroic challenges are definitely a good way to upgrade your character's armor, or if you unlock good, or if you find good hats to increase your armor, that's another way to do that as well. Moving on to the final Magic Skylander, we have a Wrecking Ball. So Wrecking Ball is an adorable little dude who was, actually, backstory, was going to be an ingredient in a magic soup. But the magic made him big, and he ate the person who was going to eat him. And Eon found him, and now he's a Skylander. So he's actually quite strong, especially with his roll ability, and he's also quite fast, as you can clearly see. His third attack, his burp, is actually really strong and can deal with the enemies that are surrounding him quite fast. And his Soul Gem you don't get later until way later in the game. But I would definitely recommend getting it because it's just so strong. You literally will eat small and medium enemies with your tongue once you've dealt enough damage to them to kill them. And I would definitely recommend upgrading his roll though, because it's so strong and can deal so much damage very fast, and also lets you navigate throughout the levels much faster. This I'll explain later on, probably in another video. But yeah, Wrecking Ball definitely very strong. Let me go over his stats real quick. So, HP 270, Speed 43, Armor 24, Critical Hit 20, and Elemental Power 25. So, Wrecking Ball is... he's definitely more of an up-close and personal character. Or, I guess I should say more of a get in, get out kind of character, where you want to get in close, deal your damage, and then get out as fast as possible, which luckily, he can do with his secondary ability, so there's that. So moving on from the Magic Skylanders, we now have the Tech Skylanders, starting off with the Troll turned good, Boomer. And what I mean by that is, most of the Trolls work for Chaos. Boomer saw the error in people's ways and decided to join the Skylanders instead. So Boomer is obviously an explosive expert. He has his Dynamite Toss and he has his Ground Pound. Boomer is actually a very strong Skylander and has another character to have like a lobbing attack, which is good for some of the earlier levels, because they're enemies that you really can't reach otherwise. And his third ability, the Troll Bomb, is kind of nice. You just kind of plop a bomb wherever he's walking, and it doesn't actually slow him down any, so I would definitely recommend upgrading it if you can. But I would also definitely recommend upgrading his Dynamite Toss, because it just gets so powerful and can cause so much mayhem on the battlefield that your enemies don't actually know what to do. And as for the Soul Gem, you get it decently early in the game as well. It can be useful, but it's not entirely necessary, so I would say if you want to get it, you can, but I would usually hold off on it until you get his other upgrades first. And as for Boomer's stats, he actually is one of the lowest HPs out of any character in the game. His HP is 230, his speed is 35, his armor is 18, his critical hit is 50, which is kind of necessary when you're dealing with explosives here, and his elemental power is 25. So Boomer, all around, very strong. I actually couldn't find him for the longest time, then I finally found somebody on eBay who had him, so I got him now, and it's fine. His Ground Pound is okay, and he can do a lot, but his Dynamite is really where he shines, so I definitely recommend upgrading his Dynamite path. Moving on, we have Drill Sergeant, who is an ancient Archean robot that made its way to the surface somehow. Drill Sergeant has his dash and his drill launch, which is kind of slow because it only reloads once the drills are finished connecting. And they kind of heat seek a little bit. I would definitely recommend upgrading his dash because it's very strong. His third ability is okay, but it's not crazy good. It does a little bit more pelt damage, but the best thing about it is that it doesn't actually hinder his movement or his other abilities at all, so you can just kind of use it freely. And his Soul Gem, you get about mid to early late game, and it's okay, it just gives him an armor boost. So I definitely recommend waiting to see if you completed some of his other upgrade paths. Like I said, I would probably upgrade the dash one, but if you upgrade his drill one, the one that upgrades his third ability, I wouldn't be surprised if that one was good either. But definitely I think his dash is stronger. Going over his stats, his HP is 290, his speed is 43, armor 12, critical hit 30, and elemental power 25. So he's okay. He's a mediocre Skylander, honestly, I think, but he can do some damage and can handle groups of enemies with fairly decent ease. But it might take a little bit to get him to the strength where you want him to be. Up next is probably my favorite Tech Skylander, and that is Drobot. Yes, he is a cyborg dragon, and he's just very strong. He's got his eye lasers, and he can launch these two gears, the gear blades, I think they're called. And while they're strong, they're not as strong as upgrading his eye lasers, because they're where his main power comes from. He also has his flight, which I can't show here, but his flight I don't like very well because it's kind of hard to control, and as soon as he bumps into something, he stops flying, so it gets kind of annoying, but you do kind of want it if you want to go faster. His soul gem, you get decently about, it's a thing, his soul gem is on the same level as Drill Sergeant, so it's about mid to early late game. It's okay. It's also another one of the other Skylander abilities that's a fire-based attack that actually isn't from a Fire Skylander. Which I said before, is relevant later, but not right now. I would say you can get it if you really want, but I would recommend holding out till you get his other upgrades first. Definitely upgrade his eye lasers. And as for his stats, his HP is 290, speed 43, armor 24, critical hit 20, and elemental power 25. So, moving on through the last Tech Skylander, which I showed on the first level and first episode, is Trigger Happy. Trigger Happy is a fun little dude, and he actually has the lowest HP out of any character in the game at 200. His speed is 50, his armor is 30, critical hit is 50, elemental power is 25. So don't sleep on Trigger Happy. Despite his goofy appearance, he's actually very strong, and can definitely do a lot of things, and he's definitely a very ranged attacker, but he can do medium range, especially with his safe lob, which once upgraded is super strong, and I would definitely recommend upgrading it over the guns. But his guns have a final upgrade that is so freaking crazy. He charges up his guns for long enough and then releases a gigantic blast that's like 10 times, probably 20 times bigger than himself, that launches him back like almost 100 feet. And it does a lot of damage, but it takes forever to charge up, meaning you're susceptible to getting hit. And if you get hit, you have to start the charge all over again. So I definitely recommend upgrading his save. His final ability is okay. His third ability, it kind of creates like a turret that he has to stay in one place and shoot around in. His soul gem you get later in the game. It's not too worth it. It just gives his turret infinite ammo, which is okay, but it's not crazy. So I would definitely recommend upgrading everything else before you get the soul gem. As is with most characters. I want to say like Sonic Boom is like one of the few exceptions, and maybe Lightning Rod. Moving on to the Undead Skylanders, we have Chop Chop.
My sword is yours.
So Chop Chop's main highlight is his Arcane Shield. Most of his strength comes from his blade, which does a lot of damage very quickly. Chop Chop is good at 1v1s, but when it comes to large groups of enemies, he kind of struggles a little bit because he can only attack one of them at a time. He does have he doesn't have a third ability that kind of deals with that a little bit, but again, he's much better at 1v1s in boss fights. Just gotta keep him away from damage. Luckily, he's a shield to help him with that, but I still would recommend being extra careful when playing with Chop Chop because he can die very quickly. Well, I shouldn't say die, more like being defeated very quickly. His stats, his HP is 300, his speed is 50, his armor is 24, critical hit is 10, elemental power 39. So he has actually one of the lowest critical hits in the game, but once you've upgraded him enough, that doesn't actually matter as much because he can just do a lot of damage otherwise. And he actually is quite fast for someone who's in armor, so... Alright, I'm sorry about that. My video cut out because I didn't have enough storage, but we're back. So last time we left off, we're going over Chop Chop, and if I didn't go over everything, I will record going over it, and then we'll continue from there. But going on with Cinder, so HP 260, speed 43. Oh boy, my camera is tilted a little bit. Let me fix that. But speed 43, armor 18, critical hit 30, elemental power 25. With Cinder, oh boy, you really want to focus on her Shadow Dash because it can deal lots of damage and keeps her out of trouble. Her electric is really good too, so if you really upgrade either one, it wouldn't be that much of a stretch. It's actually really good. Her soul gem gets later in the game. I'd just say hold off on it until you get the gold or one or the other upgrades first. Moving on to probably the coolest Skylander, we got Ghost Roaster. Ghost Roaster is he wants to fight up close, but he has lots of ways to get away. He has his dash, and then he has ectoplasm ability, which is his third ability, which makes him invincible, but he moves very slow, takes damage over time, and actually can't attack. So there's that. His Soul Gem is the same concept with Terrapin and Sunburn, is that in the fact that you can wait to get it, and it won't matter as much. His stats is HP 280, Speed 43, Armor 24, Critical Hit 20, and Elemental Power 53. Moving on to Hex, which is the final undead Skylander. Hex is definitely more of a ranged attacker. She's got her chuck, whatever this is called, her primary attack, her Skull Fire, and then she has her Skull Rain. As for her stats, HP 270, Speed 43, Armor 18, Critical Hit 30, Elemental Power 46. Hex is really good at ranged attacks, and once you upgrade her Skull Rain, because that's the one you upgrade, and you have her Bone Wall, she basically can pick up any enemy at any point, and will not get hit, and which will help along with her little armor. So moving on to the Water Skylanders, first up we have Killgrunt, which we saw in the previous episode. So Killgrunt, his stats are kind of all over the place. He's got 270 HP, Speed 35, his armor is 6, but his critical hit is 50, and his elemental power is 25. So Killgrunt definitely does not want to be in the middle of a fight. He is 100% ranged attack, and he's got a lot of damage and critical hit to back it up. His Soul Gem you get decently through the game, and is pretty strong. Definitely would recommend getting it if you can. But his upgrades, I would recommend upgrading his Water Hose and Jetpack rather than his Harpoon. But if you upgrade either one, it's not that bad because both are still really strong. Moving on to the final Adventure Pack exclusive, we have Slam Bam and Ice Yeti. So his HP is 310, his speed is 35, his armor is 30, his critical hit is 10, and elemental power is 25. His critical hit is so low to make up for the fact that he does a lot of melee damage. I would definitely recommend upgrading his melee rather than his ice prisons because they don't actually do a whole lot and are kind of hard to control and aim. But because it's definitely where he shines with his melee, and his dash ability is really strong, and the fact that it gives him a lot more mobility. And as for Soul Gem, the same concept as the other two. Basically, just kind of upgrades his dash a little bit, so there's no point in getting it right away. Next up is Whamshell, who's probably my favorite of the Water Skylanders. He's got a giant mace that he swings around, and he has a ranged attack, but it's not very strong. I would definitely recommend upgrading his mace and his Poseidon Strike, which is his third ability, where he slams his mace into the ground to deal a lot of damage. His Soul Gem comes in early as well. It's only Chapter 5, but it's just an armor upgrade, so you can hold off on getting it until later on. He's definitely very good with fighting up close, but his armor doesn't help a whole lot with that. His HP is 300. His speed is actually 50, which is kind of funny because he holds around this giant mace. His armor is 18, his critical hit is 30, and elemental power is 25. So, moving on to the final Skylander is Zap. So he's the dragon of the Water Skylanders. And he has his little lightning bolt. And then he has his water dash, which I would definitely recommend upgrading. And he's definitely good for range, but he can also get in and out of battles quite quickly. His Soul Gem is okay. It lets him heal when using water, which again is not too relevant because it's not too much water. It does come in decently late in the game, so if you want it, you can get it, but I'd recommend upgrading to other upgrade paths first. So that is all of these Skylanders, all 32 of them. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Skylanders, Spyro Adventure, and other videos. And at this moment, my latest Minecraft video is actually being processed right now. So hopefully that goes up soon. And anyway, guys, make sure to ring that bell so you know when my videos go up. Subscribe for more. Like the video. Comment below which is actually your favorite Skylander and why. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, everybody.